Do you know what's most ironic? Most men are pushing where they don't need to. They touch, praise, insist, but they remain in the dark, because the right point was never the body. What really ignites female desire is not seen in the mirror. It is built between the lines, in silences and in invisible language. And here's a reality check. The more you try to impress with the physical, the further you get away from the real trigger of her pleasure. The mind. No, it's not self-help talk. It is neuroscience applied to seduction. Women are connected to the imagination, and when you awaken this invisible organ, she surrenders without even understanding why. But few men have this key. Most are trying to open the safe with the wrong password, and when they can't, they think the problem is with them. Do you want to know what is the invisible touch that makes her think of you even in silence? So stay here, because today you will learn what no one has taught you. While many still bet on the old visual tricks and direct approaches, the real game of seduction begins long before the touch. It begins on the invisible stage of the mind. A man who knows how to plant ideas, who masters the art of subtext and psychological mirroring, awakens more than attraction. He ignites a desire that comes from within. He doesn't need to rush, because he understands that the female imagination is a fertile ground where fascination springs up slowly but strongly. It's like a good suspense. What you don't see screams louder than what's wide open. And in this dynamic, less is much more. A clear example. While one talks about his car, the other talks about a story lived on a rainy night where anything could have happened. But it didn't happen. See the difference. One activates curiosity, the other boils down to the obvious. One creates a world in her mind, the other only shows the world from the outside. And when she designs, she feels it. What is felt is hardly forgotten. This is the strength of the narrative, of the mystery, of the silent presence. A well-positioned look is worth more than a cheap compliment. A strategic silence can echo deeper than 1,000 words. It is not about memorizing phrases, but about understanding the psychological rhythm of the feminine, where desire is born from a deeper place, the imagination. It is there that the tension, the fascination, the emotion reside. And whoever dominates this invisible field dominates the game. Her mind needs to be conducted as a well-written script, full of pauses, twists and turns, and between the lines that invite projection. And just when she thinks she's got it all, something changes, and that's where we get into the next secret. The greatest illusion is to believe that the body is the protagonist of seduction. He is only a supporting actor. The true flame is lit when the mind is provoked with intelligence. A man who knows how to use symbols, metaphors, and atmospheres conquers without touching. He makes her wish for something that hasn't even happened yet, just because he hinted at it. Imagination, that invisible organ of desire, reacts to small stimuli, like a dramatic pause or a look that says, "I know something you don't know yet." This type of communication, almost invisible, messes with what is deepest in women, their internal universe. When she feels like there's more behind what's been said, the game changes. The desire is not for him, it's because of the enigma. It's like when she reads a book like Women Who Run with the Wolves or The Perfume. She immerses herself in a symbolic world that provokes, engages, and disconcerts. And suddenly she feels what she can't explain. That's where power lies. Provoke without delivering. In practice, it is choosing each word as if it were a dance step. It is to create atmospheres with a simple maybe or a who knows one day. It is to use silence as a brush and body language as paint. Those who understand this realize that conquering is not invading, it is inviting. And when she accepts the invitation, it is because her mind has already wandered the paths of desire. The body only goes after it, but only after another element enters the scene. Seduction is not a 100-meter race, it is ballroom dancing. The man who understands this knows how to use time as an ally. He doesn't play with everything, he doesn't give everything at once. He creates tension with strategic pauses, with messages that stop in the middle of the sentence, with silences that scream louder than any statement. It is this rhythm that makes desire last, because where there is waiting, there is imagination. And where there is imagination, there is emotion. Simple example. While one sends 10 messages in a row, another sends only one and then disappears for a while. And in this interval she thinks, remembers, projects. This strategic disappearance is not negligence, it is a sophisticated way of keeping the flame alive. Like a good movie, it knows when to stop to leave the audience sighing for more. The secret is in the emotional rhythm, not too cold, not too obvious, just present enough to tease. Tension is not created with anxiety, but with self-control. It is the absence of lack that generates magnetism, and it is the emotional mastery that allows man to be the conductor of experience. He knows that anticipation is an aphrodisiac, that mystery is more potent than any compliment. He does not need to be always present to be remembered, and as she tries to decipher what she's feeling, a subtle new element begins to speak even louder. There is a type of presence that does not make noise but dominates the environment. It is the man who enters in silence but says everything with his eyes. He doesn't need to exaggerate his tone of voice, nor justify himself too much. He understands the power of pause, rhythm, invisible language. His seduction is in what is not said, in the slow gestures, in the grave tone that invites mystery. She feels it without understanding why, and that holds her back. It's the same thing that happens with artists like Anthony Hopkins on stage. He doesn't need to scream. A slight arch of the eyebrow, a silence between one sentence and another, and that's it. We are hooked. A woman perceives such a man, not with her eyes, but with her intuition. Invisible communication is in the subtext, in the unsaid, in the tension that he builds effortlessly. And this tension keeps her emotionally connected, even in her absence. Whoever dominates the invisible dominates the game. The body speaks, even immobile. Prolonged silence after a response can be more impactful than an entire speech. The calm tone, the firm look, the restrained smile, these are tools that create fascination and stir her emotions. It is as if it is drawn into a deeper frequency. And when she starts to feel it, something even more powerful enters the scene without her realizing it. There is a technique that seems magical, but it is pure psychology. Mirroring. When a man tunes into the woman's emotional rhythm, not in a hurry, but with presence, something profound happens. She begins to see herself in him. What she feels, he reflects. And this reflex generates comfort, familiarity, security. It's as if he says, "I understand you," without saying anything. This is real connection. It's not about copying gestures mechanically. That's caricature. It's about capturing the emotional energy of the moment and following it with subtlety. If she speaks more slowly, he slows down. If she smiles from the corner, he reciprocates with the same tone. This generates an almost invisible synchrony, which makes her feel something rare, belonging. She sees herself in him, and when that happens, she starts projecting desires she didn't even know she had. It's almost emotional alchemy. Imagine someone who in an intimate conversation notices that she avoids eye contact when she talks about something vulnerable, and then does the same. This breaks down defenses, because mirroring does not invade, it welcomes. And when she feels that she is being welcomed, she begins to let her guard down. Gradually, without realizing it, she gets involved. And when you are already immersed in this state of deep connection, that's where the next subtle element starts to transform everything. The difference between an ordinary man and a magnetic man lies in something that few see: self-control. When he is not easily shaken, when he knows exactly who he is and what he wants, the woman feels it. She doesn't need to listen, she realizes, because his presence conveys inner security. He does not react on impulse, he chooses clearly. And this, for the feminine, is like finding water in the desert. Self-worth is not shouted out, it emanates. The man who lives in line with his purpose, who has emotional mastery, becomes rare. He doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. And precisely for this reason, everything about him rings true, even silence. He doesn't get lost in games because he doesn't have to win anything. He has already won the hardest thing himself. And this transformation is what makes it fascinating. Want a practical example? Observe a guy who even in the face of a provocation keeps calm, smiles slightly, and simply leaves without haste. That's power, that's emotional clarity, and that's seductive because it shows that he doesn't depend on anyone's validation to feel complete. And guess what that does to her? Inquisitiveness, fascination, and an almost uncontrollable desire to find out what, after all, is so special about him. But that's where the magic really begins. The man who truly understands the art of seduction does not seek tricks, he seeks transformation. He realizes that the game is not in the other, but in himself. When he changes the way he sees himself, how he takes care of himself, how he positions himself in life, everything changes around him. It is not about memorizing catchphrases or copying other people's attitudes. It's about living with purpose, about having enough inner security so you don't have to be someone you're not. This turning point begins in the silence of one's own reflections. That's when he asks himself, who am I when no one is looking? And he decides to be someone he himself would admire. He begins to read more, books like Neil Strauss's The Game or Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. He begins to take care of his body but also his soul. He begins to eliminate noise, to value time, to move away from everything that feeds anxiety and lack of presence. And with that, magnetism begins to grow. The most curious, when he stops trying to impress, he becomes impressive. The woman feels this change even before she understands why. She sees in his eyes a rare calmness, a stable energy, a clarity that draws her in. And without him saying anything, she feels that he is not there out of need but by choice. And it is precisely at this point that time, that old ally of seduction, begins to act with even more power. Now that you understand what really arouses female desire, tell me, why keep repeating the same mistakes? How many times have you tried to impress with what she sees and not with what she feels? Maybe it's time to stop chasing and start attracting. The question that remains is, are you willing to transform your communication, your presence, and your energy? Or will you continue on autopilot? If this content has opened your mind, type tap right here in the comments. If you didn't like it, type wrong touch so I know I need to improve. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications because this is just the beginning. In the next few videos, you'll learn how to master the art of invisible language, silent magnetism, and emotional seduction. The kind of thing that no one tells you, but that changes everything.